Far from the village, deep in the dark forest, stood a lonely house where a woman named Emily lived. Years ago, her husband, David, had mysteriously disappeared, and ever since, the villagers believed that his disappearance was shrouded in dark secrets. After losing him, Emily withdrew from the world, isolating herself from the people around her. But every night, it felt as if David's spirit still lingered within the walls of that eerie house. Whenever Emily went to bed, strange noises filled the air. The muffled sound of footsteps above the ceiling, rhythmic tapping from the kitchen, and distant whispers carried on the wind. At first, she dismissed these as mere hallucinations brought on by exhaustion and grief. However, the sounds grew more distinct, more sinister. The nightmares invaded her sleep, with David repeatedly appearing in her dreams, his face blank, whispering the same haunting words. "I'm coming back, Emily. Tonight." One particular night, Emily awoke to a peculiar noise coming from deep within the forest. Peeking through the window, she saw a shadowy figure standing at the edge of the woods. It resembled David, but not quite. Panic surged through her and she backed away, retreating behind the door. But just then, the door creaked open by itself. A gust of wind swept through the room, bringing with it the familiar, eerie sound of David's voice. "Open the door, Emily. I'm here." Emily stood frozen, her arms wrapped around herself, trembling as the floor beneath her began to shudder. Her gaze locked onto two glowing eyes in the darkness. This wasn't David. It was something far darker, something malevolent, creeping ever closer. A dreadful realization gripped her. This was no mere nightmare. It was real, and it was here for her. Paralyzed with fear, Emily could only watch as the entity approached, its presence suffocating. Leaning close to her ear, it whispered, "You will join us." From that night forward, Emily was never seen again. Her house was found abandoned, with no sign of a struggle, but no one dared to uncover what truly happened. A legend began to spread. Whoever dared open that door would find themselves lost among the spirits, drawn into the same haunting fate. Since then, the villagers have avoided the forest, and the house is now believed to be cursed. For those who wander too close, the wind carries an ominous whisper through the night. "I'm coming back." After Emily's disappearance, the villagers declared the house and the forest around it cursed. Even the bravest among them dared not venture near. Yet, as with every legend, there are always those curious enough to seek the truth. Two young adventurers, Mark and Sophie, decided to investigate the rumors surrounding the haunted house. They resolved to spend one night inside to see everything with their own eyes. As they made their way through the dark forest, the wind howled through the trees, as if an unseen presence was watching their every step. Sophie kept glancing over her shoulder, feeling movement in the shadows. Mark laughed off her fears, insisting it was just her imagination. But neither of them realized that the darkness had already enveloped them. When they opened the door to the house, the old wood groaned under the strain. Inside, it was as if the house had been waiting for them. Everything was frozen in time beneath layers of dust. Mark pulled out his camera to record everything. With each step, the wooden floorboards creaked, as if whispering secrets from the past. "There's nothing here," Mark said with a nervous chuckle. But just then, the kitchen door swung open on its own. Sophie's heart pounded in her chest. They exchanged glances. This was no longer a joke. Suddenly, they heard muffled footsteps steadily approaching from above. It was as if someone, or something, was descending to meet them. Mark turned his camera toward the sound, his hands trembling. But there was nothing, only the pitch-black void. Then Sophie heard it, a whisper, soft yet menacing. "You will join us." She froze, her breath catching in her throat. Through the window, she saw glowing eyes peering in. It wasn't human. It was the same malevolent force that had taken Emily. Mark dropped the camera and they bolted toward the door. But the door wouldn't budge. A powerful wind swept through the house, as if the very walls were alive, breathing in unison. In that moment, Sophie realized they had crossed into a realm from which there was no escape. Neither Mark nor Sophie was ever seen again. A few days later, their camera was found among the trees at the edge of the forest. Those who watched the footage said the final frame showed a shadowy figure emerging from the darkness. A woman. It was Emily, her lips moving silently as she whispered the same chilling words, "I'm coming back." To this day, the villagers still talk about that house. Those who dare to walk near it at night swear they can hear whispers in the darkness. Open the door. Now, no one dares approach the cursed house, for they know that whoever opens the door will be consumed by the endless night. Fear gripped the village more each day. After the disappearance of Mark and Sophie, no one dared approach the cursed house. However, one day, a paranormal investigation team from the city, James, Laura, and Tom, decided to uncover the truth. They believed that solving this mystery would bring them fame, and they were eager to unveil the secrets of Emily's home. As they arrived at the house in the dead of night, an eerie silence enveloped the surroundings. The forest seemed to hold its breath, anticipating the horrors that lay ahead. The team set up their equipment and began their exploration of the house. Laura scanned the rooms with an electromagnetic device. James started filming, and Tom listened intently with an audio recorder. Everything appeared calm, but there was an unsettling weight in the air, as if an unseen entity was watching them. Suddenly, Laura shrieked and jumped back, exclaiming, "Someone was behind me!" But James and Tom saw nothing. In that moment, the doors slammed shut, and a powerful wind wreaked havoc in the room. From somewhere in the house, a hoarse voice echoed, "Tonight, we will play with you." They tried to escape, but the door was locked tight. Eerie footsteps resonated from all directions. Laura pressed her hands to her ears, screaming, "Get us out of here!" But nothing changed. When James pointed his camera at the wall, his eyes widened in terror. The pale face of Emily emerged from the shadows, smiling eerily as she whispered, "It's too late." The room was engulfed in darkness. The group split up, each seemingly pulled into a different realm. Alone in the blackness, James felt a whisper creep up behind him. "You belong to us now." For a brief moment, he saw his reflection in the window, but it was not himself. The figure transformed into a horrifying creature, bearing no resemblance to the person he once was. After that night, there was no sign of James, Laura, or Tom. Only their equipment was found along the path leading to Emily's house. Those who reviewed the footage glimpsed remnants of that terrifying night, shadows slithering across the walls, whispers in the dark, and finally, a chilling scene ending with Emily's haunting laughter. The legends surrounding the house grew darker. It was said that anyone who ventured there would never return, because Emily's spirit was not alone. She lured others into her dark realm, where no one ever sees the dawn. Now the villagers knew. Those who approached that house would hear the same haunting words echoing through the night. "I'm coming back." After that night, no one dared to go near the cursed house. However, a few weeks later, strange occurrences began to unfold. The villagers started hearing eerie sounds coming from the depths of the forest at night, screams, muffled laughter, and most hauntingly, whispers, "I will return." Moreover, several villagers found mysterious objects on their doorsteps: an old camera, a dusty compass, and even Mark's torn jacket placed in front of one resident's home. It felt as if the souls of the missing were returning, drawing them back into the forest's shadows. The villagers grew increasingly anxious, sensing that someone or something was playing with their spirits. But it wasn't just the villagers who were intrigued. Newcomers from the city were also captivated by the mystery. Jake and Mia, two friends who investigated paranormal phenomena, decided to uncover the fate of the missing research group. They were experienced but unaware of the house's curse. That night, Jake and Mia entered the forest, illuminating their path with flashlights as they approached the house. The air in the woods was thick and cold, as if every breath drew a piece of darkness into them. Suddenly, Jake halted and said, "Do you feel that? We're not alone here." Mia turned back and saw glowing eyes in the darkness of the forest. The eyes seemed to glare at them with rage. At that moment, a voice echoed in their ears, "There's no point in running." They found themselves compelled to enter the house, but it was already too late. Once inside, the door creaked shut behind them. An eerie silence enveloped them, as if the house itself was a living entity watching their every move. While searching the rooms, Jake discovered a photo frame containing a picture of Emily and the missing David. In the corner of the frame, a message was scrawled in red, "We are here." Suddenly, loud banging emanated from behind the walls. Mia saw something moving, but dismissed it as her imagination. Then, shadows on the wall began to stir and took the shape of a human figure. It was Emily, but her eyes were lifeless, her smile frozen, and her voice was hoarse. "There's no turning back now." Jake and Mia attempted to flee, but the doors had already locked tight. The walls seemed to close in on them, shadows swallowing them whole. After that night, there was no sign of either of them. The only evidence found near the village was the last recording on Mia's audio device, which clearly captured Emily's whispering voice. "You will stay with us." Now, the villagers understood that the house was no longer merely an abandoned place. Anyone who remained there became one with the darkness, their souls forever lost. The whispers from the forest served as a constant warning, "I will return." Anyone who attempted to uncover the house's secret never returned. Legend has it that those who passed near the house at midnight might catch a glimpse of a pair of eyes watching them from the shadows, silently waiting for their next victim. In the darkest hour of the night, a profound silence fell over the village. The townsfolk were certain that the spirits of the missing would not return, yet an inexplicable unease lingered among them. The curse, it seemed, was far from over. It had become smarter and more dangerous. At that moment, no one knew that the ultimate secret was on the verge of unraveling. Deep in the forest, inside Emily's house, something had shifted. The crumbling walls of the old home seemed to awaken, holding secrets against the flow of time. Suddenly, Mark and Sophie, the long-missing duo, materialized as if nothing had happened. Their eyes were vacant, their movements slow and mechanical. They resembled living beings, but they were no longer themselves. A dark force had claimed their souls. As they walked toward the village, shadows stretched behind them. Emily's curse had fully unleashed itself, slowly spreading from the depths of the forest. Eleanor, the oldest resident of the village, awoke to see strange figures approaching from a distance. They drew closer, accompanied by ominous whispers carried by the dark winds. "We have come. It's your turn now." Eleanor quickly grabbed her prayer book, trying to lock her door, knowing that this time mere prayers would not suffice. As the clock neared midnight, darkness engulfed the village entirely. The lights flickered and died, and the air turned icy. Everyone felt the presence of another entity within the night. The darkness itself had come alive. Suddenly, Emily's silhouette appeared in the center of the village. No longer just a victim, she had become the embodiment of the curse. In that moment, the shadows attacked the townspeople. Some tried to flee, others sought shelter, but nothing could save them. One by one, they disappeared, as if the shadows were swallowing them whole. That night, the village vanished completely. The next day, anyone who came to the area found only the forest and an abandoned house in place of the village. From that day forth, there was no trace of the village. Legend has it that every year, on the same night when the village disappeared, whispers of Emily and those who vanished with her can be heard from the woods. And if anyone dares to open the door of that house, the spirits will be forever trapped in endless darkness. Now they know, anyone who opens that door will never return.